Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to switch this so that I can actually share my screen. So just a moment. Okay, I'm unmuting you guys again because for some reason I'm having a problem getting my screen up. Can you guys see that? Yes or no? Hello?
I had, but not now.
Okay, you saw it before, but for some reason it's not sharing now. Is that correct? Okay, so let me, hold on a second. I am going to minimize that for a second. Oh, no, okay. Well, let's.
Terry, I'm seeing it now.
You do see it now?
Yes.
Because for some reason I can't see it. All right, so I'm going to go back here. All right, you see all of that?
I see you, and behind you I see the Let's Talk About whatever that poster board is.
Okay, but you don't see the PowerPoint presentation.
No, I don't see the PowerPoint presentation.
All right, hold on a second. For some reason, back to meeting. All right, share screen. All right, there we go. Now, you should be able to see all of that, correct?
I do.
All right, perfect. I don't know why it was messing up today. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to mute everybody for now as we have more people coming on.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. So I thought this was a really big topic because of everything that's been going on in the media. And I wanted to talk about how past trauma relates to mass killings, and also how self-esteem relates to it. So just as a little brief introduction of who I am, now my screen won't go. We're just having all kinds of problems today. There we go. All right, so I am Terry Azus. I have a master's in clinical psychology, a licensed professional counselor, a licensed sex offender treatment provider, and a certified anger resolution therapist. I also have over 25 years of experience in this field. So Gateway to Counseling, of course, we're hosting this today, and this is a program that we have that provides online mental health counseling. We're only $49 a session, no office, no traffic, no long-term commitment, and we address everything from day-to-day stress to everything else. So that's just a little bit about who we are. Of course, we have lots of different things that we cover, from depression, marriage and relationship difficulties, anxiety, grief, anger issues, drug problems, bullying, and of course, low self-esteem. So today we're talking about mass shooting, and I just did a brief, rundown on some research out there in the media right now, and I was a little surprised to see this number, 307 mass shootings from January to November of 2017. And they actually define a mass shooting as a gunman who shoots or kills 4 or more people and in the same general location. And so you have this map here of where these shootings have been occurring. And of course, the darker the color becomes, the more shootings that particular state has had. I don't know about you guys, but to me, that's a lot of shootings. I didn't realize that it was that much. And of course, you see Florida is on there, but this only went through November of 2017. It did not take into account everything that has happened just this year. So I also thought this was really interesting. This kind of shows where the mass shootings have been occurring. The FBI has been collecting this data since around 2013. And what they're saying in 2013 is that you have these mass shootings occurring primarily in businesses and schools. I just thought that was very interesting. You have low numbers, say, for government properties, open spaces, tends to be a little bit up there, 15%, right? But 39% or 39 shootings have gone on at the school level, 24.4%. That's a lot. And then, of course, you have most of them occurring in the business arena. So to me, that speaks volumes because that's where we are. That's where you go to work, and that's where your children go to school. So it's like you have a greater chance of dying in a mass shooting if you're at school or at a business. Very interesting to me. So I wanted to address the profile of a mass shooter. And this is according to a forensic psychologist out in Portland. He said that it's motivated by revenge and envy. I think if you've been following the news on mass shooters, you kind of get that sense, right? And I'm going to keep referring back to the situation over in Florida. Motivated by revenge and envy. There are high feelings of rejection. There are risk factors tied to crime. There's a history of abuse or ineffective parenting. And there's some connections actually to media violence. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Actually, I'm going to talk about a few of these a little bit. So we got crime. Most of that is going to be involving drugs or theft, violence, some type of violent crime. Those tend to be the crimes that the mass shooter will maybe have committed in the past. A lot of these, of course, we know go under the radar and you never even hear about them getting into trouble at all. There's a history of abuse or ineffective parenting. And I like the way he said that. That was being nice. So we got physical abuse, we got sexual abuse, we got a lot of neglect. We have parents who have been using drugs themselves. And basically the parents are absent. They're not very involved. They're not very, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not there to guide and direct. That's not to say that all mass shooters have parents like that. I just want to be clear. But this is the trend that we have seen with the mass shootings here in the United States. And then the one I really want to talk about is the media violence. It bothers me that we have so many children nowadays growing up on violence and on the media. And, we got YouTube videos that, depict the violence. We have all the video games, guys, a ton of video games where there's a lot of shooting and those kind of things. I can remember seeing kids, they're all excited about watching Instagram and Facebook and all those social media sites that show someone beating another person. And the kids watching this are laughing. I remember a client that I had in junior high. She was 7th grade, and she got in trouble more than once for videotaping a fight that was occurring after school. And it went viral, of course. And each school, and this is actually in Fort Bend ISD, each of those schools have their own little sites that they post these kinds of fights. And what bothered me was that this particular girl, forget the fact that she was videotaping someone fighting, but I knew her and I knew her history and I knew how she had been violated before. And yet, to me, she was violating this very person who she was taping being beat up. And kids just have no sense of what they're doing to another person. They think it's fun. They think it's funny. And when you have a generation that's growing up with that type of violence, and especially with the videos, you know, they have guns in their hands shooting on these video games. They don't feel any pain. They don't feel anything for this. It's just a game. And so it transfers over into something like this of being a mass shooter. So more about the profile of a mass shooter. We have fire setting behaviors. They tend to hurt animals or younger children. They tend to be more self-centered and lack compassion. I thought that was an interesting one, which just means they don't connect with people. And are we even surprised to see that up here? Are we even surprised that this is a characteristic of a person who's a mass shooter? If you have grown up for the last 5, 6 years being focused on video games and not interacting live with people, and everything you're doing is through, you know, your cell phone and so forth, then how can you have compassion for someone? I don't know how you can do that. They harbor resentment. They tend to be paranoid. I think you can probably see that. They think people are out to get them. And that might be because they were bullied before. I can understand that. But it goes beyond just, oh, someone doesn't like me. Oh, someone is saying this about me, which kind of brings me to another point about bullying. I don't know if you guys have seen my YouTube video on bullying, but, you know, I have some issues with the way we use bullying nowadays. I have a client that is only 6 years old, and she told her mom that she was being bullied at school. And her mom, of course, was upset, and, you know, she told me and wanted therapy and about some other things as well, of course. And so I went to talk to the teacher and found out that she wasn't being bullied at all. You know, this one little girl had said one thing to her one day, I don't like your shirt, or something of that nature. And this client of mine went home upset, saying that she was being bullied. I think we over exaggerate the word of being bullied. And I do know that bullying is worse than it used to be in my generation. And that's because of social media, once again. Because back in my day, if someone called me four eyes, which they did, I could just go home and get away from all that. I could go home and get away from the people who were calling me names. Nowadays, you can't do that. I say you can't, but you really can. These kids are so connected socially on the internet, but they can turn it off. They really can. We have low self-esteem. We're going to get into that a whole lot more. Feeling powerless. And then we have a triggering event, which means you've had all this stuff going on for a period of time, and then all of a sudden, something happens, and it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And again, I go back to the shooting in Florida. That particular person had just experienced some added trauma, and things just went a little crazy for this person. So I'm going to unmute you guys for just a moment. Okay, so I wanted to know if you guys have any feedback on what I was saying about mass shootings. Does anybody have any feedback on that or have any questions?
Some of those behaviors also for kids, don't a lot of those come under sociopath or psychopath?
Yes, you're exactly right, Pam. Yes, those are the characteristics of antisocial behaviors. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute you guys again. Take out the background noise. Okay. Cheryl, I was trying to unmute you, but I had some problems. I think you have muted it yourself, and that's fine. So what I want to be very clear in saying today is that even though this is a profile of a mass shooter, we can't predict who is going to kill. We can't predict who is going to have these kind of behaviors. Just because these characteristics are all in common doesn't mean that another person with the same type of characteristics is going to end up being a killer. I've worked with a lot of young children. I've worked with teenagers. I've worked with adults. And they might have some of those characteristics, and they don't turn out to be a mass shooter, at least not in my 25 years of doing this. What's also important is that most people with mental illness are not always violent. I think that the media is trying to say that, oh, this person had mental illness and didn't get the necessary services that they needed, and now, they turned into a mass killer. And so now we need to be careful of all people who have some type of mental illness, and that just isn't true. So I want to be very clear in that. The thing about mental illness is that if you have depression, it's considered mental illness. If you have ADHD, you have paranoia, and on and on and on and on, right? And so those are classified as some type of mental illness. Post-traumatic stress disorder. And of course, that's a really good one to talk about, because we do know so many people, especially our veterans, who have post-traumatic stress disorder. And even though they've had guns in their hands and they've been in the Army fighting and killing people, they don't come out and become mass shooters. We've had, I think it was a case outside of San Antonio last year where that was a situation, but that is not the norm, right? So I just want to be clear in conveying that with you guys today. So I like this question. So are you a murderer? It says in the Bible, of course, thou shalt not kill. Robert Morris from Gateway Church was on TV on Sunday. I actually watch him before I go to church. And he happened to be talking about this particular commandment. I thought it was really interesting. So I took some of what he said and put it into this presentation today, because I think it's so important. So based on what he's saying and based on what I know, we all have the potential to become a murderer, right? Maybe not a mass murderer, but we all have that potential to kill. And the funny story is, this lady was married to her husband. Husband passed away. They had been married for over 40 years. And, somebody was talking to her, and they said, you were married to him for over 40 years. Did you ever think about leaving him? And she said, no, never thought about leaving him, but I thought about killing him a few times. And I thought that was funny, because I think people can relate to that. When you have, when you're a mother or parent of a teenager, there are times that you just want to strangle them, right? You don't, of course you don't. But there are times that you just, you're laying in bed and you have a boss that's just really, really awful. And you kind of entertain these thoughts sometimes. People do that. That is a potential. You don't act on it. Nobody wants to act on that kind of thing. But those thoughts kind of run through your head. I'm going to come back to that potential in just a moment. I want you to remember that your words kill too. And this is something that people don't talk about a lot in our society. I'm actually Catholic, and we go to confession, and that's in our conscious review, that words kill. So no, I'm not a murderer. I'm not going to take a knife and go and stab someone. I'm not going to take a gun and go and shoot someone. But do I kill people with my words? Meaning, do I gossip? Do I slander? Do I just have a lot of negativity in my words and with the people that I'm around? Am I uplifting or not? So if someone comes to me and I'm just really critical of them, then those words are killing them. They're killing their spirit. And I think this is what happens to a person that does become a mass shooter. People have surrounded them with so much negativity and just killed them with their words that their spirit is crushed. And so when your spirit is crushed, what's left? And so again, I'm going to come back to that when we talk about self-esteem, but I just want you to remember that we all have the potential and that our words do kill. So steps to murder. So according to Robert Morris, he said murder is preceded by violence, right? And so what he's talking about there is that you don't just go out suddenly and murder somebody, right? You usually have something going on before, and that usually is violence. So let's take, for example, in this situation, a man who murders his wife, okay, or a wife who murders her husband. More than likely within that relationship, there was domestic violence. I think we all can relate to that. There was domestic violence. And so with that domestic violence, there was a lot of physical aggression and a lot of emotional abuse. And so that person just gets to the point that either they're so aggressive that they murder, or that the wife, for example, maybe she was the one being beaten. She just can't take it anymore, and she snaps and she kills her husband. We've seen those kind of stories a lot. We've seen a lot of stories where one person in a relationship, intimate relationship, kills another person in that relationship. And usually there is some type of violence that happened before the murder. And then violence is preceded by hate. So I'm going to stick with this example for a little bit. So you have this husband and this wife, they're married, they're supposed to love each other, and yet there's a lot of hate. If you've worked with any couple in couple therapy, or you've been friends with someone, and there's a husband and a wife, then you know that they have this love-hate relationship. And the hate sometimes takes over, I'm afraid. It's almost like they love that person, but they hate that person. They hate the fact that they love the person. And it's when they hate that they love that the violence can occur. So hate is preceded by an offense. So what I mean by that is you feel offended. You feel offended by something that person did to you. A real big one that pops up in my head is respect. People always want respect. They want you to greet them a certain way. They want you to, talk to them a certain way. They want you to tell them certain things. And if you don't do that, they feel offended. I cooked this nice dinner and you didn't say anything about it. You didn't say thank you. You didn't say it tastes good. I'm offended now. So now I'm going to be mad. So what happens over the course of time is that there's added offenses that have not been resolved, and then you begin to build this hate. Does that make sense? So we have murder, we have violence, we have hate, we have offense. And offense is preceded by expectations. So I expect that when I cook this wonderful meal for you and I've been slaving all day, that you are going to appreciate it. And if you don't show me that appreciation, I am going to be offended. If I do something nice for you, I expect you to show me gratitude. And if you don't show me gratitude, then I am going to be offended. And over the course of time, all of these offenses add up because my expectations aren't being met, and it can lead to hate, right? Expectations. I think that is the number one killer of most relationships is expectations. Maybe number two. Number one would be lack of communication, right? Because you're not communicating with that person what your expectations are. You're not communicating with that person that you felt offended. You can feel offended and you will tell everybody else. You will tell social media, you will tell your friends, but you won't tell the very person who offended you, because for some reason in our society nowadays, we believe that we can't be open and honest with people. We believe that we can be honest on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, and we say whatever we want because we can hide, but we can't tell the very person that we're upset with exactly what we think and feel. We think that that's going to be worse, but it's not. And there are ways that we can communicate, and we'll probably do a webinar on communication in the near future. But there are things that you can do to communicate what your expectations are. So, all right, so steps to murder. Forgiveness and grace allows you to not walk down the road to murder. That is just so important. If we will just forgive other people, then we will be able to have grace with them and they have grace with us, and just communicate. And if you're able to do all those things, then you don't get to murder, right? And so that's the key there. So what can you do? All right, so I thought this was a really beautiful picture. Talk to yourself like someone you love. And I just thought that was so important, because people don't do that. They don't show love for themselves. They don't show love for others. What can you do? So first of all, it starts at birth. It starts with just very simple things of encouraging a child and being supportive and being encouraging to them. Just telling them what you like and their strengths and building them up. And that starts at birth. We have to have healthy relationships. What that means is communication. I'm going to go back to communication several times, because that's the foundation of a healthy relationship. You have to be able to say, hey, I didn't like when you did such and such, but I do understand that maybe something was going on. Can you tell me what was going on? So we have to build these healthy relationships. Good parenting, that's without a doubt. And I'm going to go back to the video games, because with good parenting, I don't think children should be allowed to be on a video game multiple hours every day. I just think it's not healthy for them. They should be outside. They should be playing. They should be making friends. They should be interacting with other people. That goes into being a good parent. But it also means that you go and have conferences with the school, with the teachers, that you go and sit in to that classroom and see what's going on. That's good parenting. And you talk to your kid every day and you say, how was your day? What happened? And if they say nothing and walk by you, then you know something might be going on. And you might have to, see what's going on through social media. You might have to call the teachers, because sometimes your kids are going to shut down and they don't want you to know what's going on. They don't want you to know the truth. They're going to put on a mask in front of you and pretend like everything's okay. So you're going to have to dig sometimes, and that's part of being a good parent too. It does take a village. What I mean by that is you got extended family members, you got friends, you got neighbors. I can remember in my neighborhood when I was a little girl, I did something that was pretty bad. And I was on the opposite street of where I live. And you better believe before I could even get home, one of the parents had gotten to my mom. I was in trouble big time. But it takes a village. I knew not to do certain things because I knew my mom was going to find out, right? So it does take a village. Encourage people to get help for mental problems and daily stress. And that is important. We have this stigma now that people should not get help for even daily stress. You have so many people that are, overwhelmed with anxiety and fear and, the day-to-day grind of how to handle situations. And that's where we come in at Gateway to Counseling. We're here for you for those daily stresses. You need that. We all need someone that's objective, that's a friend we can just tell what's going on, and they can help us through that situation without judgment. Decrease children's time on video games and violent media. Again, I've talked about that. I just think it's very important that we monitor what they're doing. We monitor how often they're on it, how long they're on it, and just what they're getting their hands into. I can tell you right now, past client of mine, only 6 years old, who was on the tablet, was looking for dancing girls, and you can imagine what popped up. Before you knew it, she was addicted to porn. Parents didn't even know. Just you have to watch what our children are doing. And then we want to increase self-esteem. This is the most important. Tips to increase self-esteem. So affirmations. Speak highly of yourself and of others. I'm not saying to you that you should ignore people's weaknesses. I'm not saying that if a person says, oh, am I fast at running, and they really aren't, that you should say, oh, yeah, you're great. No, we have to be honest, but we have to be nice in saying it. For example, no, you're not very fast in track, but I saw that you were very good at hitting a ball. So maybe you should try baseball, or something of that sort. Or I saw that you're really good at drawing. You're very artistic. And encourage what their strengths are. So we use affirmations on a daily basis. This is so easy to do. I think it's the easiest thing to do. When you're walking down the hallway and you see somebody, say, oh, I like your dress, or oh, I like this. I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say, strangers come up to me and say, oh, I like this and I like that. And that makes me feel really good. Not to say that I need other people to build my self-esteem, but it surely doesn't hurt, right? Be positive. Be positive with other people. Be positive with yourself. Okay, so maybe I didn't have such a great day doing this, but that's all right, because I know that I can do it better tomorrow. And this is what I'm going to change. And so that's being positive too, right? Highlight your strengths. I just talked about that. Listen. That is important. We don't listen to people. We're so busy wanting to shoot off our thoughts and our comments that we don't listen. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and every time I got ready to tell her this one story, she would cut me off and tell me something else. And after like the fourth time, I said, okay, are you going to let me finish? Because she wasn't listening, which means that she was in her own head and she had her own dialogue going on. She wasn't really focused on anything that I was saying, right? And so when you listen, you clear your mind of your thoughts and what you want to say next, and you actually listen to that person and let them have that time. I love meeting new people and asking them one question and just sitting back and listening to them. I make a lot of friends. Can you imagine why? We want to encourage them. Spend time actively engaged with your support system. This is important. You need to know who your support system is. Family members, friends, co-workers, the church, members of your church. Who is your support system? Identify those individuals. Know who's going to tell you the truth and who's going to be supportive of you and non-judgmental. And that's who you need to go to at times when you need support and you need to have that self-esteem increase. Take time for yourself. That's important as well. Just taking an hour a day, taking 20 minutes a day, sitting out in the backyard, sitting in the bathtub with some bubbles, maybe a glass of wine, but just really relaxing. No social media, no TV, no phone, no texting, none of that. Just time to yourself. This is something that I try to do about an hour every day. I don't always get to do it, but I really try to do that. And then smile. If you just walking somewhere, if you're walking at a grocery store, for example, when you see someone, just smile at them and say hi. Smile and say hi. You'll be amazed at what that does for a person, because that means someone saw them that day. Someone actually had an exchange with them that day. You don't know what their life is like. Whether they're a child or an adult, they might live completely by themselves and have no social interactions really with anybody. So smile and say hi. Give to others. And what I mean by that is you want to give back. You want to give your time. You want to give your resources, your talents. I like to give back to others because it lets me know that this world is big, it's large. One of the most favorite things that I used to do was go to the hospital and pray for the sick. And I would meet the most awesome people, 96-year-old ladies, and they would just share their life with me. And I just thought that I was being blessed by being in their presence and learning so much. And there they were on their beds making me laugh, you know? So give back to others, because when you give, it comes full circle and it comes back to you. Know what your spiritual beliefs are. It doesn't matter what they are, but know what they are, right? And then follow your spiritual beliefs. Know where you receive your higher power and what brings you peace inside. So know your spiritual beliefs. Accept yourself and others as they are, where they are. We're not all in the same place. We're not all in the same level. Everyone has different experiences. And the truth of the matter is, we're not ever going to be on the same level. We're not ever going to be in the same place. And so it's okay if a person doesn't think the way you think. It's okay if your answer to the problem is this and their answer is that, and it's their life and they need to make that decision, because you're going to accept them where they are. We want to forgive, okay? We talked about that earlier. Forgiveness is so important. And I'm not just talking about forgiving another person who has done you wrong, but also forgiving yourself, okay? I think that we forget that it's important that we make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. If you can forgive yourself, you can forgive other people. If you can forgive other people, you can forgive yourself. And it just allows for greater love to go around. Be kind. That's self-explanatory. Know your mission in life and walk the path daily. What do you mean, Terry? I mean, know what your purpose in life is. Not just, oh, I'm going to be a school teacher, or, oh, I'm going to work in the business industry, or I'm going to work in insurance. No, what is your actual mission? What is it that you're trying to accomplish in your job title? I know my mission in life. My mission is to bring love, peace, joy, light into the lives of others. You know, I want people to know that there's a greater life out there. That is my mission. Walking my path daily means things like doing this today, because I'm trying to reach millions of people. And even though there might not be a lot of people that's on this webinar right now, that's okay, because I know I'm going to upload it to YouTube, and I know that people are going to watch it, and that's awesome. I know that it's going to be on YouTube for a long time, and people are going to have access to this webinar and to this information. And so maybe, just maybe, I will be able to touch one person, and I'm getting emotional just thinking about that. But if I can just touch one person's life and change their self-esteem and help them to love who they are, who knows? Maybe I just saved the lives of 20, 30 people. Maybe I saved the lives of more people. Maybe I changed just one life and it expanded, right? So that's my walk. That's my daily walk. And then you want to practice mindfulness. We know a little bit about mindfulness. It's just where you stay very present. You stay in the now. You're not so focused on the past. You know, you remember your past because that's where you came from. It's who made you who you are. But it is not living in the past. You cannot live in the past, because if you live in the past, you won't get anywhere in the future, right? Or you won't like where you're going. So practicing mindfulness is being in the present. It also means that I'm not living in the future. So I know what my goals are. I know what path I'm trying to walk. I know there might be some deviations along the way, but I am not going to be living in a fantasy. That's exactly what I mean by not living in the future. So I'm grounded in today, and I'm going to do what I need to do today to walk my path. Okay, so that's practicing mindfulness. So I like this particular picture that I found, and I just like that, you know, that powerness. I like it says, I am not how I feel, because sometimes we feel one way. And I practice and read a lot from Dr. David Hawkins. And one of the things he talks about is that we have all these different feelings, and feelings come and feelings go. You wake up in the morning, you might be happy. By 9 o'clock, you might be stressed. By 12 o'clock, you might be at rest. And you just go through all these different emotions during the course of the day. So you cannot judge who you are based on your emotions. I don't know if you guys have heard that before. I am the love that I seek, right? So that's important too. So that's just who I am. So again, I am Terry, and I am with Gateway to Counseling. We are here for you. We are your objective friend. Please enter our gates to a brighter tomorrow. You can visit us at our website at www.gatewaytocounseling.com. I'm going to unmute you guys and see if you have any feedback. Hello, can you guys hear me? Hello? Does anyone have any questions in today? No?
Any questions? Is that what you said?
Yes, any questions or comments before we end today?
No, I think you're on the right track. And I think as you age, you feel a lot more compassion about listening and really paying attention to other people. And as you said, you know, I used to want to save the world. And then I realized that I had to get down to the one person. You know, if I could affect or make a difference in one person's life a day, and I was living the way I should be following, the path that I was on.
I love that. Exactly. Just one person, right? That's all it takes.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else have anything to say? All right. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and stop now. We're going to end our webinar for the day. I am going to upload this on YouTube and make it available for anybody who wants to see it in the future. So thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.